Hi, my name is Jordan Keeter. I am obtaining a degree for secondary education for history. I'm working on a degree to teach high school and middle school history to students. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down some of the professional dispositions that are important in the classroom for teachers to possess, some of the dispositions that I personally have, some of the dispositions I believe are important, and how they morally impact our students and how they will psychologically impact our students, what that looks like from a development standpoint. In addition, I'll also be talking about how that promotes, or how I will be promoting, a healthy moral development in my classroom personally. In response to the first question of what dispositions I possess, I currently know that I have a respect for diversity. I love to talk to different people from all different walks of life. It definitely brings me alive just to hear different stories and hear about the differences in people all over the world. So as we navigate through being a teacher, we'll run into all kinds of different scenarios, different situations, from home lives, from social statuses, from even cultural differences that we just aren't aware of. So I know that I love to show respect for that by learning more about it and promoting it and enjoying those conversations and bringing students in and going, hey, what is it about your life that you could share with me, because I may not know it. I think that's very important as a teacher. In addition, advocacy is a big one. I know that I was a troubled teen, so to speak. I did kind of make the wrong decisions and went down the wrong path. And I want to be an advocate for those students. I feel like a lot of times adults are not very good at reining those kids back in and giving them hope sometimes. So I want to be an advocate for those students and the students who are working hard. There are good students out there that sometimes get overlooked, and maybe they don't have opportunities, or they aren't aware of certain opportunities. So I want to be an advocate to be able to mix that up and say, hey, look, even if you don't know about these opportunities that are here, but those that are also kind of led astray, I want to make sure that I'm an advocate for those kids and helping them as well. But also compassion. I have a heart for all of the young people, specifically the teenage group. Because I was a troubled teen, I did do some crazy things that I shouldn't have done and kind of led me down a path that I didn't want to be on. So as a teacher, I think it's important to have compassion for those students, because sometimes it is a developmental issue, sometimes it's a home issue, sometimes it's just making a poor decision. So I know that for a teacher, it's important for us to be compassionate towards those kids and still show them love and, nurturing as we're guiding them through the process of their education. In addition, some of the dispositions that I do feel like I need to work on, one is going to be reflection. I want to make sure that as I am developing, even in this current course as a college student, I want to reflect on all of the things I'm taking in, and I want to retain them, reflect on them, and be able to apply them later on in life, later on in my classroom. But in addition, as I mature as a teacher, I want to be able to reflect on my first year when I'm in my fifth year and be able to learn from those things so that we can grow and improve on how we're doing things. As far as what attributes should a professional educator have and how should they behave, I feel like professionalism is probably the number one thing that every teacher should have. We should be professional in all walks of life, whether it be in our personal life, whether it be in this classwork or classroom, even out at the restaurants in the community. You never know when you're going to run into a student. So being professional is a very important attribute that a professional teacher should carry. In addition, communication. Communication's key. I think communication can be turned and twisted in so many different ways. So having effective communication as a teacher is going to be important so that your students, one, understand the topics that you're teaching, but also understand who you are and what your expectation for them should be. So if you're not able to communicate what the expectation is, some students may or may not be able to live up to that. So it does make it a little bit more difficult if you're not communicating effectively. In addition, I would say empathy is a huge disposition that all teachers should be having, or should be carrying as a professional, is having empathy for students who don't understand a topic, or maybe they do have a situation at home that is difficult for them and they're carrying it out in school, and maybe it does affect their education. As a teacher, we have to be empathetic to those situations and be able to still nurture that student and give them positive reinforcement to be able to do their classwork or learn the topic that we're going over at that time. So I believe empathy is another major attribute that you should have in the classroom. The next question that I want to answer is, how might teachers' dispositions positively or negatively affect the moral development of students? And I think that that's key with some of those dispositions I just mentioned. For instance, empathy. If a student is maybe a troubled teen, doesn't want to do their class work, or maybe doesn't understand it, having empathy is going to positively impact them. We can give them a better hope when we do say, hey, it's okay, we love on them, we nurture them, and we understand where they're coming from, and instead of just kind of throwing them to the side and forgetting about them. And like I said, I think that a lot of adults do that. We tend to just think that if a troubled teen's a troubled teen, there's no hope for them. But if we show them that hope, we may be that one voice in their life that is going to give them a positive influence. In addition, I think if you do lack these dispositions, it can negatively affect their moral development. If you are someone who is not living up to moral standards of your own that you can pour into these students, guide them with, they may have a negative impact. They may show these students that living a certain way is an okay thing, even if it isn't a good thing for them. In addition, for me, I'm going to uphold the expectations of the profession by practicing the code of ethics that we do have as teachers. Being responsible to the profession, being responsible to making sure that as an educator, I'm always learning more, growing more, and becoming effective, being competent in the studies that I'm teaching. So if I'm teaching history, I want to make sure that I am competent in history and knowing what certain things happen throughout the world over the last thousands of years. It's important as a teacher to be able to teach the education properly. In addition, being responsible to your students, for instance, how they're developing, how they're growing, and what you're doing to impact their lives, you have to be responsible for that, and you have to take responsibility for it. In addition, that comes with the ethical side of things. As a teacher, we have to be on our P's and Q's as far as how we behave in public, in the school system, and everywhere else. So I think that upholding that code of ethics is going to be key in making sure that we're meeting the expectations from a professional standpoint as an educator. I will be also promoting a healthy moral development with my students in my future classroom by modeling the 4-component model of moral functioning, which is going to be awareness, judgment, commitment, and action. You want to make sure that you do have moral awareness and teach these students what moral awareness looks like. Being aware of your surroundings, being aware of how certain decisions will impact your life. That's important as a teacher to be able to talk about that with your students. In addition, showing them the differences in how they make those decisions and their judgment on what decisions they need to make. It's critical to be able to say, this is right, this is wrong, now what decision do you make? And guiding them along in that. And as an educator, if we're showing them by example, it's easier for us to be able to help them navigate what right and wrong looks like and encourage them to make better choices. And being committed to that, being committed to them, being committed to always learning and always improving our own selves, I think is important, but also being able to put it to action. Showing students what that looks like, how we can make the things that we need to make happen. For instance, it may be in the classroom setting. If a student knows that I can make a decision to do my classwork or not do my classwork, here's your good and bad. Here's your effects. This is how we're going to make the decision. What's the judgment that we're going to make? How are we going to do that? But then also making an action plan. If we're going to be a positive influence for our student, it may be, how's your classwork coming? Great. Are we going to do the classwork? Yes? Great. So let's put it to action. Let's make sure we're doing that. And as a teacher, it's important that we do hold ourselves to that standard and hold our students to that standard and use these dispositions in the classroom so that we can positively impact students for the greater good.